And this panel is really about what's happening on the street with product and with retail, and where consumer demand is and why it's actually is moving the needle, and that the consumer is actually really willing to buy music if it's presented to them in the right way, and if it's a cool place for them to buy it at. So on the panel, we have my good friend Neil Schield, who has the coolest record store in Echo Park. It's called Origami Vinyl. He also has his own record label and is just released the EP on No, right? And then you're working a full-length EP and a full-length album on a band called No. Literally one of the best bands I've heard in a really, really long time. And we have the infamous Jeff Jampol, who manages dead people. Pretty much. Yeah, you're pretty infamous. He handles The Doors, Janis Joplin. Who else can I actually? Rick James. So I can say Otis Redding. Ah, yes, you know Michael Jackson. And Jeff has, especially with The Doors, has put together some just amazing product that has really been something that like no manager has ever done before. So I really want to talk about the relationship between manager and retail.
We started in April 3rd of 2009. I'd been in the digital side of the music business for 11 years. So social media, online marketing, those kinds of things with record labels, managers, bands. When I started the store, I really wanted to come back and get involved in the community, my local neighborhood. I've lived in the neighborhood that the store is located in for 10 years before the store opened. So I'd already been pretty invested in my local music scene and what was going on there. So for me, it was important to build some sort of community around the store. Through the relationships that I had built in my past lives in different eras of my career, I got to know quite a few different managers and whatnot. So when the idea had sparked me to do this, I reached out to a lot of these managers myself and kind of was seeing what they wanted to do, what they wanted to get involved with on a retail level. My good friend Michelle Fleischle, who works at Silva, manages Sonic Youth. I had worked with Sonic Youth at Interscope Geffen back like 10 years earlier. So when we launched the store, Sonic Youth came to us and said, hey, we want to take over your store for a day for our new record, and we'll curate the shop and pick bands to play and those kinds of things. And they didn't do that anywhere else in the country. So it was they did it with us and I think the Apple store in New York or something like that. So to be a physical retailer and only being like a month and a half open and having a band like that come and kind of bless your shop really built a lot of credibility for us. And it just kind of showed me that those relationships that I built with managers early on were important to what I was going to do with this record store, which, mind you, is only a 400 square foot shop. We only sell vinyl. We don't sell CDs. We don't sell candy. We don't sell T-shirts. We don't sell toys.
No popcorn?
You know, we're just straight up, a record store. And the power of that relationship really kind of gave us a good foothold into doing things in the future. And since then, we work very closely with all sorts of different artist managers to set up anywhere from like ticket giveaways in our store.
In stores, you have performances.
Performances 3 or 4 times a week, which from a marketing standpoint, it's huge because we don't believe in buying advertising. We believe in building our relationship with artists and having artists build our store through their fan base. So things like Twitter and Facebook have been huge for that because the band is essentially going out and telling their fan base that they're doing this thing at our shop. And it's been extremely successful for us. For being such a small store in a little neighborhood in Los Angeles and being close to the proximity of something like Amoeba, it's incredible what kind of organic relationships with our customers we've built, not only on a local level but on an international level, because of these relationships with bands and managers and labels.
I want to throw in a comment about what Neil's speaking to because I think it's absolutely spot on. And there's a book which I encourage all of you to buy and read. This guy's one of my gurus who's taught me a lot. It's a book called Ogilvy on Advertising. Oh. Ogilvy. And David Ogilvy was one of the co-founders of Ogilvy and Mather. But he was the first guy, or at least among the first guys, to put together human psychology and human nature with advertising and marketing and really understood the human psyche. And he explains it in this book. And if you really want to know how people respond and react to things you do, read this book. Because he revolutionized retail advertising. This is just one of like 40 things they talk about in this book. But he went to a couple of the top retailers, I think it was Macy's and Bloomingdale's, and he said, I can revolutionize your advertising. He said, and I can uplift your sales probably 50% or greater. And they said, get the fuck out of here. And he said, I'll tell you, I'll make you a deal. He said, I will do the campaign at no charge. He said, but I want a percentage of all the uplift. And they said, okay, how are you going to do it? He goes, I'm going to change everything with 2 words. And he got them to agree to this deal where he would work for free, but he shared in the uplift. And once he had the deal signed, he then said, let me tell you the secret. He said, you guys don't understand what drives human nature. He said, the number 2 motivator of people is the desire to gain something, right? That's number 2, and it's a very distant number 2, by the way. And I watch time after time as digital marketers, marketing guys, advertising guys, labels, retail stores, all go on the premise that they're going to give their customers an opportunity to get something, right? Whether that's a discount or a savings or a special, and it's such a distant number 2 motivator. He said the number 1 motivator is fear of loss. Fear of loss is hundreds of times greater than the opportunity to gain. It's kind of like looking at somebody that you might be interested in dating and then looking at them with somebody of the opposite sex on their arm as they walk down the street. So what he said was, you guys are advertising sweaters 20% off. He goes, you're delivering to your customer the opportunity to save 20%. He goes, I'm just going to add 2 words at the end. Today only. Today only. Their sales shot up about 70 to 80%, and those stores, 50 years later, have taken it to such absurd lengths that today, if you read the Macy's ads in the newspaper, if there's still newspapers around, they shop early, 8 to 10 a.m. only, right? Because the opportunity to gain a 20% savings paled in comparison to the fear of losing out on this thing. It's today only. So everything you were saying is spot on. The limited production, the fact that you can't get it, the fact that it will sell out before you get there, that is the number 1 driver of human beings.
Obviously, the customer is the number 1 person that informs us, and we talk, because we're a small store, we're very in close proximity with our customer on a daily basis, and they kind of let us know what they're into. I mean, the store 3 years ago definitely had a different vibe as far as what we carried today because of what our neighborhood kind of wants us to carry. From that, though, we are very active with not only working with labels, but with blogs and other social media partners that inform us that this band is starting to take off. We pay attention to those things. We're very, even though we're a brick and mortar store, we're very online savvy, so we're on the internet all the time. And maybe some of the older stores don't do that or aren't privy to that, but for us, it's like I said, it's my background from my career, so I'm paying attention to a lot of that stuff, and that definitely informs my purchasing. What's interesting from my perspective, since vinyl is one way, I can't take too big of a risk on how much product I bring in. So in a way, I create demand by selling out a product. And that might sound crazy to some other retailers
because you have limited.
They want to have stuff on stock, and if they miss a sale, it's a huge deal for them. But for me, if I'm bringing in 5 copies of something and it sells out first week, I'll reorder. And my customers are so loyal that they'll put something on special order and come back a week later. They won't go to another store. And then that obviously alerts me to demand. So I might miss out on a week of sales, but I know I'll get those sales back when I reorder. So a lot of it's with the relationship with the customers. Because I can't sit on stock. I've got a 400 square foot space. I only have 3,500 titles in my store. And if I can't return that stuff, if I don't sell through it, I'm going to be screwed. So it's all about keeping it limited. And also for me, once I turn over product, I don't bring it back in. I leave it on a special order because I'm always trying to bring the new product in. So I go through stuff. I mean, there's some core things I always keep in stock, but for the most part, the store is constantly changing and evolving with different types of product.
I think we try and be a conduit. I think the business has really changed in the last 20, 30 years. Well, certainly in the last 20 years. I think this last era has been the first time that artists have really started to realize that they have a brand and that they have meaning that obviously is based on music but goes way beyond that. And I think for 30, 40 years, artists tended to look at the label as the keeper of that flame and the guider of that brand, and they never were. And I think that's, by the way, I think that's the cause of a lot of the friction, where you have artists really pissed off at labels, and labels really pissed off at artists because nobody really understood the roles that they should have been playing, and we're looking to people to do things that they necessarily weren't equipped to do. Certainly in the last 20 years, we've started to see that I won't say the power, but I'll say the correct roles have come back, where the artists are starting to guide their own careers and their own brands, and the label is a partner in that. You know, if you look at a pie chart of a successful touring artist, somebody who's paying their bills, roughly should look like this. 60 to 65% of their revenue will come from tickets, live performance, 15 to 25% from tour merch, 10 to 15% from publishing, 2 to 5% from ancillary sources, film, TV, commercial, and 2 to 4% from record sales. So really, you have 6 partners, right? You have a publishing company who's your partner, you have a record company that's your partner, you have promoters who are your partners, you have merch companies that are your partners, if I didn't mention that already, and film and TV reps and music supervisors who are your partners, and sometimes ad agencies, depending on the artist. And the artist is the one that's responsible for his brand. He's the one that's responsible for his name and his likeness and his art and how people perceive him and what he puts out there to the public. And it comes in a lot of different media. Obviously, the foundation is recorded music. And so recorded music, because it's the foundation, is one of the most important parts of the authentic aspect of that artist. As a manager, you know, we guide that. And so we're really trying to be a conduit between labels and retail and fans. You know, for the most part, prior to the advent of social media, there was no way for the label or the artist to really have a handshake relationship with the fan. Retail were the purveyors of the handshake relationship, meaning that a retail store was the only place that an artist's fans really had a personal one-on-one relationship, other than if they happened to meet an artist at a show.
I want to talk about Record Store Day for a minute, and I'm gonna kick this off with Neil. And I know there's a bunch of retailers in the house. You know, Record Store Day has become sort of like the day, and labels are doing special releases, and everyone's kind of getting on the bandwagon. I know you had like almost something like 20 hours of performance and in-store and something totally mad crazy in your store. So I'd love your thoughts on the impact of Record Store Day, both positive and negative, on your store.
Well, obviously Record Store Day is an amazing event for anyone who owns a retail business. We're quite lucky as record stores to even have an event focused just on us. You know, if you look at your local bookstore, your local coffee shop, or what have you, you know, they don't have a day like this. So first of all, you know, just being a record store and opening right when Record Store Day started, you know, it's pretty incredible. Last year was our best day ever, and this year we beat that day by 45%.
Wow.
And every year has grown. So from that point of view, it's incredible. There is some concerns on my end, but obviously I'm a different store than someone like an Amoeba. You know, I have a very niche store. I'm very specific on what I carry and my product and whatnot. But, you know, for instance, you know, I think that some labels are looking at it like a cash grab. And I worry about that because as I was saying in an earlier meeting, you know, if we meet demand on product, on all this stuff, if there's potentially 20,000 people that want to buy a record on Record Store Day, and we meet that demand, the event aspect of it gets taken away. And so I kind of used this analogy, and I'll use it again. To me, Record Store Day is like if the Rolling Stones were to play Staples Center 6 times a year, and it sells out every time, and that's a great thing. Press doesn't really talk about it. It kind of just happens. If within that year the Rolling Stones then played a 1,000-seat theater in Los Angeles, the press and everyone would go crazy. You'd have people freaking out trying to find a ticket, whatever they can.
Which they have done, and the press does.
Yeah, and you know, people will line up around the block. And I think Record Store Day is that same thing, and I think we have to keep that kind of mindset with Record Store Day. It's about keeping products limited. It's about making an event. It's about making people talk about what they didn't get and how their buddy got this and they weren't able to get it, or vice versa. And I think that's what's exciting about it.
With the Doors, for instance, we sell about 2 million records a year, but I sell about $15 to $20 million worth of t-shirts. And I sell movies, and we do $2 to $4 million a year in film and TV placement. So records are a very small part of it. But we work very closely with digital media platforms. We do deals of the day with Amazon. We're actually, we were one of the first iTunes LPs that they tried. So we were in a pilot program with them. We create virtual box sets that are only available online at certain digital platforms. I can tell you right now, we've got something really interesting that I've been working for the last year with Jack Holtzman, who's the founder of Elektra Records and a certified genius and one of my favorite human beings, and the guy that signed the Doors, and Paul Butterfield, and Love, and Queen, and
genius.
Simon.
And the nicest dude ever.
Jack and I, it's amazing to watch him. We have been working for a year and a half on the be-all, end-all, over-the-top, what he calls the Zoot Capri Doors app and iBook. And it's going to tie in together, and we have been we've got designers from all over the world working on this thing. We're going to have all kinds of advanced geotagging. We've got this one thing where you take your iPad and you hold it up in front of the whiskey and you click the button and you can just pan down the street and it'll show you Sunset Strip in 1966. We've got all kinds of hidden Easter eggs in there where if you twist your iPad on the right page, a vintage Doors poster will come up that no one's ever seen before. We're using iTunes scan and match system in cooperation with Apple, where it takes, for instance, 28 songs to operate the app. This will scan and match your system, tell you how many songs you need to fully use the app. You can use it no matter how many songs you have, but if you want them all, it will give you links to go and buy them. We try to be right at the forefront. I think it's part of the brand of the Doors, which is being very cutting edge and hopefully a little dangerous.
For us, it's engaging with the local bands. So we devote quite a bit of our floor space to local music because we feel being a regional store and supporting that kind of music definitely, you know, we want to rise with those bands, so to speak. But it's a hard decision, and so, you know, I'm not always right. There's times when I miss a record and it takes us, you know, 2 to 3 weeks to get the record in because I didn't know enough about them or I missed out. But, you know, I definitely do my homework. You know, when I get the solicitation sheets from different distributors and whatnot, if I haven't heard of a band and their description sounds somewhat interesting to me, I will go take a listen and see if it fits what our customers are buying currently and if it's something that we want to get them into.
I'm guessing you also listen to your customers as they come in.
We listen to our customers, definitely. And like I said, we're very involved with local bands. So for us, when we hear something that we like, we push it hard. You know, there's a band right now, Big Black Delta, who's on tour with M83. And,
they're amazing.
They're a local band, and we're selling, you know, half of their records right now. You know, it's because we're pushing it so hard. And, you know, it's those kinds of things when you build those relationships and you help a band launch. It's just...
I'm not sure if that commends you or...
Please give Jeff and Yell a round of applause.